my channel and welcome to episode 4 of my Storytime series. If you haven't seen episode 1, 2, and 3, you can go on my channel, Becoming 29, and catch up on my Looking Back Storytime series. It's really important that you catch up, especially on episode 3, because this is episode 4 and I kind of like tell all the stories in order of events. So today I'm going to be talking, kind of picking up from where I left off in episode 3. I'm going to be talking about the time before, a couple of weeks before, like a month before my dad passed away. So he passed away in 2017, July 7th. It was in my final year. So it was a wild time, and it was also while I was dating my then perfect guy. So my dad was a single parent since 2004 when my mom died. I'm not really sure like what month or what date she passed away, but she passed away in 2004 when I was 4 years old because of epilepsy. So my dad was a single parent from then, and like that's all I've ever known, right? I just have a dad, the best dad ever. He was so funny. He was like a superhero to me and someone that I thought like could never die ever, because he always used to tell us these really wild stories and like how many times he got shot and so many things that he got through, especially because he was in the police force and in the time of just apartheid and stuff like that. So yeah, I just never thought that I would see the day where he was sick and then he died. So around the time of my mom's unveiling, a lot was happening in my dad's personal life. He wasn't working for a little bit and everything went back on track, and that's around the time that he planned my mom's unveiling. And around that time he was a little sick and he was just not himself, you know what I mean? He was struggling to walk, he was struggling to sometimes eat, he was struggling just to do a lot of things. Sometimes, you know, driving was difficult, and it was a very weird time because I'd never seen my dad like that. But that did not faze me at all, because I was like, oh, this guy's been shot in the neck, shot in the foot, he's been like in the jungle with like guns and stuff, and like he's been through so much. He's gone days and weeks without eating, you know what I mean, because of like his job and like where he was not deployed but where he was kind of deployed to, you know what I mean? So I thought like it's just like he's just not feeling well, he's gonna get better. So around the time of my mom's unveiling, I met that guy that I told you guys about in episode 3, my then perfect guy. So on the day of the unveiling, he was struggling a lot, you know what I mean? It was not usual him, you know what I mean? He was he needed somebody to help him walk a little bit. He needed like to take breaks in between just a whole day to go and lie down. He just spent a lot of time sitting down and not doing a lot, and he wasn't drinking as much. This is really bad, but my dad, like, he drank a lot. Not a lot, it wasn't like a problem, but he loved his J&B and soda water. So on that day he didn't drink much and he just struggled. Like I think he just looked very tired. So after the unveiling went by, my dad talked to me and Zama and told us that he was going to take a trip. I think it was to a traditional healer, I don't know, to Nelspruit. I don't quite remember properly, but I think because he believed a lot in traditional healers, you know what I mean? He thought that it was something in the spiritual world that was really wrong, so he felt like he needs to go to a traditional healer. So this specific one was in Nelspruit. So he asked us if we wanted to go with, and at first I was kind of like, I don't really want to go, but I could never say no to my dad. So I was like, yeah, sure, we can go. But on that same weekend that we had planned to go over to Nelspruit with him, my then little fling or whatever it is, I don't even know what to call it, to be honest, my little entanglement that I had with that guy, he called me and he was like, he's going to Durban in July, would I like to come with? And I was like, what? I hadn't been to Durban like that, you know what I mean, like with a guy and with somebody who was moneyed, you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, this could be a really fun experience. And you know, with us girls, when you start you know, getting a little bit interested in somebody, or like in like potentially seeing like a future, like you say yes to anything. So I was like, I actually have a trip with my dad, but he can kind of wait. He kind of like convinced me. He was like, no, you could always see your dad. And I was like, yeah, I could always see my dad. He'll be here when I get back. So we went to Durban, and how it broke to my dad was, I got back home, I told Zama that he wants to take me to Durban July. He wants us to drive there. And someone was like, what, are you crazy? I'm not letting you go alone for safety reasons. So we were like, okay, so how are we gonna break it to Babake, which is what we called him, to Babake, that we're not going with him? And we're just like, okay, we came up with a plan, and we just like told him that one of our friends won tickets on radio to go to the Durban July, and she asked us to go with her, and he bought it. But I felt really bad. I felt like, I don't know, my dad just seemed so disappointed, and I just felt so bad in that moment. But I was just so selfish in that moment also. I was just like, nah, like he can wait, he'll be here like when I get back. We've taken like tons of trips together, and I've never like gone anywhere with this guy. So we packed our bags and we drove all the way in the most beautiful car. We drove all the way to Durban, spent the weekend in Zimbabwe. Actually ended up not even going to the Durban July because I had nothing to wear. I hadn't done my hair, you know what I mean? I wasn't just going to rock up to Durban July in like jeans. You don't do that. So the guy that I was with actually did go to Durban July, but I stayed in like the villa. While I was there, the guy that I was with, he was just like so adamant on like, when we get back home, I'm calling your dad, I'm sitting him down, and I'm telling him that I'm in love with you and I'm gonna marry you. And to me it was like, whoa, that is wild. He was just like, couldn't wait to get home and talk to my dad. And we drove back from Durban. We spent the weekend there. We drove back, and when we like arrived in like our residential area, he actually called me. This is so bad, I'm sorry. I feel so bad. But I was laying on his chest, and he actually called my dad. And he was just like talking to him, and he was like, how are you? And he was like, I really want to see you soon. I need to talk to you about something. And I could like just hear like vaguely that just my dad was not okay. You know what I mean? And it was very difficult to hear, but I was like, he's fine. He's been through so much. Like, he's not gonna die because of this thing. So we got home, unpacked our bags, went to my dad's bedroom to let him know that we were home, and he was like covered with his blanket, his duvet. I think they arrived on the same day that we did. He was covered with his duvet, so I could just like see his face a little bit. And we were just telling him that we're back and we had such a good time, and he was not happy, I think, with us. He was a little disappointed that we didn't go with him, but I must say that he was way worse than how we left him before we went to Durban July. So I don't know what happened in Nelspruit. I don't know. But if he did go see a traditional healer, I feel like he was way worse when he came back. But still, I was like, no way. My dad is a superhero. He's gonna get through this. So days went by, and there was one specific day where my dad would not eat. He would not eat, not take his medication. He had diabetes. So I would go in the room and be like, did you eat? And he'd be like, yeah. Zama fed me, like gave me some food, because he was kind of like bedridden in a way. You know what I mean? He struggled to even like walk to the bathroom. On that specific day, like if I came in and I was like, yeah, do you want anything to eat? Should I get you like yogurt? You know what I mean? And he'd be like, no, Zama already gave me something. And when Zama came in and she was like, do you want something to eat? He'd be like, no, Tano already gave me something. So he wasn't eating at all, and he did not drink his medication. Same thing with the medication. If I asked him, did you drink your meds today? He'd be like, no, Zam already gave them to me. He lost quite a lot of weight, and it was just it wasn't looking good. So we called my aunt, his younger sister. We called her and we were just like, he's not eating, we don't know what to do, we're freaking out. And she came over here and with like a bunch of food, and she was just like talking to him like, you need to eat, you know what I mean, you're not okay, like you don't look fine. She was like freaked out. Let's go to the hospital, let's just find out what's wrong. And asked like if he took his meds, and he was like, yeah, I'm okay. And like his eyes were kind of like hazy, you know what I mean, like really red. It was not a nice experience to see him like that, but he was just like, no, I'm so fine. He was like, he's like putting out his best acting skills, like, I'm so fine, like I'm good, I'm not hungry, like I don't need to go to the hospital. He was like, you know, like he was trying to like reassure my aunt that like, no, I'm fine. And then my aunt was just like, no, he's not fine. So we called an ambulance, and when it got here, he was like, I'm not going. Now he was mad. He was like, I'm not going to the hospital, I'm fine. He only agreed for like the paramedics to come inside and like check like all his vitals, and they were the ones that said, no, this is really bad, he needs to get to a hospital. And he was like, send them away, I'm not going. And then the ambulance left. And then now we started freaking out and panicking because he was just not okay. So he needed to get to the hospital whether he liked it or not. So now my aunt was calling a couple of family members. Now there was like tons of people here. It was me, Zama was here, my aunt was here. We called a couple of like abomalume to like speak to him. And then we called the ambulance again, and we were like, no, come back. This guy's going to the hospital whether he likes it or not. When the ambulance got here, everyone was kind of like trying to convince him that like, you need to like get up, you need to go to the hospital. And he was like, no way, I'm not leaving. And my uncle, I remember my uncle saying that if you don't get up, uzoshona, basically means like you're gonna die if you don't like go to the hospital. And I remember him saying, that's fine, that is, he was like, it's fine, I can die, I don't care. And I remember they called us in, me and Zama, and they were like, speak to him, just say anything. And I went to him and I was like, Babake, please, just go in the ambulance. He's like, it's fine, just go. So Hamba now, we're not gonna leave you. Just please go so that they can check you out. If you're fine, you'll come back home. And when I told him that, like, I was begging him, like, Wake, please, like, just get into the ambulance, like, Sizohamba now, we're not gonna leave you. He was just like, I don't care. I left and I went outside, and I was sitting outside and I was crying, and I was like, this man is gonna drive me insane. Like, why does he not want to get up and just go to the damn hospital? And Zama was also in her room crying, and I remember my aunt, I think it was my uncle, told him that Noluthando, just get up and get into the ambulance, and if you're fine, we'll bring you back home. And he was like, I don't care, I don't care. That was really difficult for me, but after that they were just like, you know what, fuck it, they're just gonna do it. They rolled him in the blanket that he was in, they put him in the stretcher, and he was screaming at the whole time. He was like, I'm Funkama, just leave me alone, just leave me alone. It was the worst thing I've ever experienced, hearing my dad scream like that, someone that I know was so strong. So because I couldn't take him like just screaming like that, it was so bad. It was like, he was just like, leave me alone, my body's hurting, just leave me alone, just leave me alone. I remember I left and I went into my aunt's car with my sister, and then they put him in the ambulance, and I don't remember who was in there with him. I think it was my stepmom. So because my dad lost his job, he wasn't able to kind of keep up with payments for his medical aid, so we drove over to, I don't remember what it was, I think it was Far East Public Hospital. This is why I have beef with public hospitals. This is why I'd rather die than go to a public hospital. But we drove over there. It was like the next best option or whatever. We drove over there, followed him in my aunt's car in the back. So we got to the hospital and we were in the waiting room. They took him into like some sort of ward, and then we just waited for like maybe an hour and waited, and then they were like, he's okay, he's calmed down, we've got fluids in his body, we've got like all the necessary things, like he's okay, he's cool. And then in that moment I had a little bit of hope. I was like, okay, so he's good, right? So let's just go home. So we left all the information, like the necessary information, with the hospital, and we told them to call us if anything changed or like if anything was wrong. I remember we got home, right when we walked in, the hospital called and they were like, yeah, he's like freaking out, he's like not cooperating, he's like pulling all like the things like attached to him, pulling them off, you know what I mean? He's like freaking out, so we don't know what to do. We've tried to like calm him down and it was just not working. So I think his mom went over there, my grandma went over there and tried to calm him down, and then she called us and she was like, no, he's fine, I've got this. So on that night I was kind of like, okay, it's fine, we're gonna, because we had planned that we're gonna go tomorrow and pick him up because he needs to come back home. So it was on the Friday. Woke up, I remember I was wearing an Adidas joggers and a Nike sweater, the one that I actually have now, a Nike sweater. Went to the hospital. It was around like visiting hours. So we walked into the hospital and there were, when we walked into like whatever ward he was in, there were a bunch of people like bandaged up, some people like, it was just not a clean environment and it was not like just a good look, you know what I mean, for a hospital. So anyway, I just like ignored all the people. So we walked in and he was the first bed that I saw in this huge ward, and he had duct tape, sort of like they had taped him to his bed because apparently he was fighting all night and like trying to get out of the bed and like trying to remove everything like on him. It was just not a good sight to see. He had like duct tape, red duct tape, connected to like the edges of the bed, those metal bars. And then my grandmother was there and she was like, just come speak to your dad, come say something, come say something. And I got there and I looked at him and he was like, that's how he was breathing, and his eyes were like glossy and he was just out of it, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know if he realizes where he was, or like if he was even in that moment, I don't even know. But I left. I was like, I'm not dealing with this nonsense. I'm not gonna see my dad like this. This is bullshit. So I was like, I'll wait for you guys outside. When you're ready to go, let me know. All right, let me know. So I went outside, past the tons of people again, sat on the in the waiting area for like a couple of minutes. I was just like busy on my phone. I think I was WhatsApping somebody, I don't know. And then Zama came out of like the ward. She came out of the ward crying. She was like crying so bad, and I was just like, Zama, what's, like, relax, he's not gonna die, he's gonna be fine, we're gonna take him home. Zama was like crying and she was like not telling me anything. I'm just like, Zama, it's okay, because in my head I'm thinking that she's crying because she saw him like that and it was not a good sight, you know what I mean? It was difficult. So I was just like, Zama, it's okay, don't cry, Zama, don't cry, it's fine, we're gonna take him home, like he's gonna be fine, like chill. I was like laughing, I was like chill. And then I remember my aunt came out and she came right towards me and I was like, what's going on? And she looked me straight in the eye and I'll never forget what she said. She was like, he's gone. And for a second I was like, what? This is a joke. He's gone, like what? They moved his bed or what? And she was like, he's gone. And she was like, Baba Kushoni. And I could not believe it. It was the worst, probably just the worst thing that I've ever heard in my life. And I was just like, how? I just saw him like 2 seconds ago. What happened between that time where I was walking out? What the hell even happened? I remember I dropped my phone, I pushed it to the side, and I tried to get back to him. There was nobody there. There was just my grandma standing there, and they had closed him with the blanket that we brought him with. That was so difficult for me to see. It was crazy. Worst experience by far of my life. worst experience ever. And the crazy part is, when we were coming in to come and see him during visiting hours, the family right next to us, their loved one had passed away. So their curtain was closed and they were just like, say your goodbyes. And I was just like, that could never be me. That's not how today is gonna go down for me. So when I left and I came back, and that was now my loved one sleeping there, my dad, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I could not believe it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call. I was just screaming. I was making such a huge scene, but I don't even care. I was freaking out. My mind literally went blank and I couldn't think of anything else. I could not believe it. I could never explain that feeling to anybody. After I calmed down, I remember my dad's close friend around that time. He was like, he'll take us home. I remember Zama left. And when I came out with my phone, my best friend was calling me and she was crying. She was like, I'm so sorry. All I could think about while I was driving back with my dad's friend was that I should have just gone to that nail spray. I should have never gone to Durban. I should have been there. I was thinking of all the times that I was so mean to my dad. I just felt like, oh, this guy is so annoying. Like, why doesn't he just leave me alone so I can just live my life? All the things that I did wrong on that week. It was so crazy. It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I drove into that hospital with a dad who was alive, and I was driving out without. Both my parents are now gone. It was crazy. It was wild. It was so difficult for me. We drove back home. We made one stop. I don't even know what the stop was for. We made one stop. The radio in the car was off. My phone was just sitting there. It was ringing, but I didn't even care. We drove all the way back home. And when we got here, I saw so many cars by our gate. And when I walked in, because the first thing you see when you walk into the door is the main bedroom right down the hall. And I saw just people just packing stuff, all his clothes into plastic bags. It was really difficult. I just kept thinking that I should have just gone on that last trip. I didn't know. I wish I knew that that was possibly going to be the last trip I ever took with him. It was very difficult. But I think that's why now, and something that I'll never forget that happened before he died, was that during the time that he lost his job, he was home a lot. So we'd always come back home and he was always here. And one day we were sitting in the car, just me, Zama, and him, and we were just talking to him. And that was the first time that we had a conversation with him on a respectful level. And we were just talking about, asking him why he was so hard on us. And he sat there and he was crying, and we were just telling him all the things that we don't like. We don't like when you're shouting at us. We don't like when, you know, you're just so mean to us. And some of the things you say are so difficult to take in. And he was crying and he was like, I'm so sorry. That was the first time in my whole life that I ever heard my dad apologize for anything. He said, I'm so sorry for everything that I've ever done. And from that day till the day that he died, he was the best dad ever during that time. He was really understanding, someone that you could talk to. Those were some of the best days with my dad that I experienced right after that time. So yeah, that's how the story goes down. I'm crying here like a little bitch. But yeah, that's how the story goes down. I think now I'm so much more grateful, and I appreciate every second of life a little more because of that whole experience. So although I think I could have done better, it taught me a lot, taught me to love my family and to choose my family over everything. And now I just tell everybody that I love them every second of every day. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. Sorry, I was crying and sniffing all over the place. But I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. If you did, give it a like, and if you wish to see more of me, you can totally follow me at Noluthando 29 on Instagram, and subscribe to my channel, Becoming 29, so you can see episode 5, which is going to be me talking about the week of the prep of the funeral, because it was wilder than ever, to be honest. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. I love you for watching. Bye.